Welcome to Big Little Stories. I'm Ivy Sharmetz. I can say with the utmost confidence that my guest today has had a passion for helping others for her entire life. Katie Carroll has been a pediatric nurse for more than 25 years, and 10 years ago, she realized she could tap into some of her own life experiences to help more than just her patients, and she became a certified health coach specializing in working with people who take care of others. My friend, thank you so much for being here, Katie.
Oh, Ivy, thank you so much for having me. I am honored.
So I should say that when I say that I can say with confidence that you've had a passion for helping people your whole life, it's because we've known each other since sixth grade. We went to Edison
Yeah,
Intermediate School together. We grew up together in Westfield. You were always that. You were
yes.
always a helper, Katie. You were always like one of the kindest friends. And I was actually new to town. I moved to Westfield in sixth grade, and you were one of my very first friends, and I'll always remember that. So you're a sweetheart.
Oh,
Did you
thank
always
you
know?
for
Did
that.
you always know you wanted to be a nurse, though?
I think so, Ivy. I'm the firstborn, so shout out to the firstborns, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And when my brother Sean was born, I was only 2.5, so I really didn't know what was going on. But by the time Tim was born, I was 6, so I was able to be like a mother's helper. And then I had a lot of younger cousins than myself. So I was always helping around, being the mother's helper, the auntie's helper. And I started babysitting like really in 8th grade. And I just loved taking care of children. So through high school, I would volunteer at Children's Specialized Hospital. And I just knew that I was going to become a helper of some sort, whether it was nursing or pediatric physical therapy. And nursing led the way. And here I am, like you said, more than 25 years later, being a pediatric nurse.
What did it feel like for you when you finally became a nurse? I know you're so proud of the fact that you've been able to help so many young patients, but what did it feel like when you finally achieved that amazing accomplishment?
Oh, are you going to make me cry this early on in
Maybe,
the interview? Right? I
maybe,
have
yeah.
my tissue here. Well, let me see if I can remember 25 years ago. Um, what was heard in the nursing world at that time, and kind of still is today, I was just talking to a new grad nurse recently, is that you had to pay your dues and do adult med surg nursing night shift for at least a year to get your toes in the water, and then you could pursue what you wanted. But I wanted to be a pediatric nurse. And I think the stars aligned when I had my first interview. It was at the Children's Hospital where I work now, and they had different units specific to the care, whether it was pediatrics, adolescents, peds oncology. And the next morning, they called me and offered me the job on the pediatric hematology oncology floor. And I was jumping up and down through the roof, excited. And the first year was definitely a blur, I think, because you just feel like, oh my goodness, I hope I didn't harm anybody on the way home from work. And the next day, going back to work, thinking, I hope everybody's still alive.
Oh my gosh.
But as I think I have to thank the group of nurses and staff that I worked with as a new grad, because they literally took me in their arms and basically helped me become the nurse that I am today. I was working on a very small 10-bedded pediatric hematology oncology unit. We had 3 nurses on day shift, a tech, a unit clerk, and our physicians. And that was my family for the first 7 years of my career.
Wow. Wow. So so Katie, you achieve all of these great milestones as a nurse. You're doing a job you love. You're positive. You're helpful. All of these things. Professionally, everything is amazing. But I know that you talk about this. Your personal life was not exactly what you wanted it to be. Can you talk to me about that?
Right. So, as you can probably gather, and maybe the listeners can gather, is that not only did I love taking care of children growing up, but I knew that that would be my life. I knew that I would be a mom. I wanted 6 kids when I was growing up because my Aunt Kathy and Uncle Frank have 6 kids, but I narrowed it down to 4 when I realized that kids are kind of expensive. And so that was where I thought I was going. And what's funny is that I used to play this game with my mom when I was growing up. So I have 2 younger brothers, so I was, the only girl. So all the Barbies and the dolls, and we played this game called Mary, and I would walk into the kitchen holding one of my baby dolls, and I was maybe 7, 8, 9 years old, and my mom would look at me and say, "Mary, I haven't seen you in so long. How are you? Is that another baby? How many kids do you have now?"
Oh,
And I would just throw out a number, 7, 9,
wow.
11. I had all these babies, and I would put them at the kitchen table with me, and that was my life. But like you said, Ivy, basically by the time I was turning 30, a lot of my friends were already married. Some were having children already. Some were having a second child. And I was very, very, very single. And so it was hard for me to wonder why the dream I had for my life wasn't happening, because I had always been the good girl. I'd always done everything that I was told to do. I'm a rule follower to this day at 48 years old. I still cross in the crosswalk. I'm scared to jaywalk. But I was doing everything right, and I was accumulating certifications and letters after my name and awards at work. And yet on the inside, I kind of felt like my soul was slowly dying because I didn't have the life that I thought I was going to have and that I deserved after doing everything I thought I was supposed to be doing up until that point.
And when did you decide to start talking openly about that? Because it's a very vulnerable thing to share with people. It is definitely a through line into a lot of the work that you do now. But at what point did you decide I am comfortable enough with what's going on? I know that if I share, I'll build community, and that's what I want to do.
That's a really good question because it definitely didn't happen overnight that I thought I should share it with people. I decided to go for my health coaching certification when I was working in the pediatric emergency room at my hospital, which is when I was going through my deepest burnout and depression. And I thought it was just another way to help people because, as the helper, I just thought I had to do one more thing to help someone, and then maybe I'd get the dream life that I wanted. But what I realized was that I was actually helping myself more than I was helping other people in learning about health coaching and life coaching. And I think when I started diving into self help books and women's motivation and going to women's motivational conferences and joining, women life coaching support groups, I realized I wasn't alone.
Mm.
And when I started sharing my story a little bit and I would hear one person say, "Oh my goodness, that's me," I started to feel less alone and more able to open up and share my story because, I definitely thought I was the only one in the world that wasn't getting the life that they had always dreamed of. So I didn't want to share that with people. I put on a facade that everything in my life was going perfectly because I didn't want people to know that on the inside I wasn't very happy.
How did things change for you?
Well, I had a day in the pediatric ER where a patient of mine had tried to harm himself. And it ended up being um, very traumatic for myself, as well as the new grad nurse that I was mentoring. And on the way home that night, I called my mom, which I do every night when I leave work. And I said to her 3 words that to this day get me choked up. I said to her, "Mom, I don't care. I don't care anymore. It's not that I didn't care about my patients, but I thought I don't really care what other people think. I don't care if my boss is going to be mad at me for what happened. I'm definitely going to call out sick tomorrow." And then my mom said to me, "Kate, this doesn't sound like you at all, and it hasn't sounded like you for a very long time,
Wow.
and something has to change. And that night, I knew I could either continue the road I was traveling on, which was very painful, but nobody knew about it, or I could just do something different. Because the pain I was in at that moment and for the past couple months and years was now at a point that it was greater than the pain of potentially doing something different
Mm,
and going outside my comfort zone and trying something new, even if I failed, because failure was huge for me.
right.
As the firstborn straight A student, I applied to 9 colleges. I got into 9 colleges. I had one job interview. They offered me the job the next morning. Failure was not a plan of mine. So I was scared if I tried something new and failed, my whole world would fall apart. But the moment when the pain that you're in is more painful and scary than the pain that you might experience in trying something new,
Wow.
when that is too great, it almost forced me to step outside my comfort zone and say, I have to change something.
And so, oh, that's so powerful, Katie. And when you realized that, what was the first thing you did?
Well, I actually took a yoga class,
Okay.
which is
Huge.
huge for me.
Yeah.
And it's not that I'm saying that yoga fixes everybody, but for me, laying on that mat at the end of class in Shavasana, when you're just laying flat with your palms open to the sky, tears started rolling down my eyes. And I thought, I hope nobody sees me because they're going to wonder, why is she crying in yoga? But yoga literally cracked me open in a way I had never been open before and vulnerable. And it started me on the path to my healing. And it took years. It definitely didn't happen that day or that night. It took years to where I got to a point where I'm able to share the story, even though I do still get choked up. But my passion for helping that former version of me, and I know that there was more of me out there, my passion for helping that woman is so great that I continue to tell my story.
And Katie, we're going to talk about how you use your story to help other people and the work that you do to help other people. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to jump right into it. So we'll be right back. Katie, when you first made the decision that you wanted to help others, how was that received? Because I know that the way you did that was by telling people about what you had experienced.
Right. Yeah. So, speaking about failure too, and our fear of failure in life, I actually asked at my hospital if I could speak to new grad nurses, just because even though everybody wasn't going to have the same story as me, I felt that as nurses, we are highly successful, highly driven, type A, little bit of a control freak, OCD. And so I wanted to talk to those nurses. So I asked if I could speak to them during nursing orientation. And the answer was no. There wasn't enough time in orientation to speak to nurses on self care. So I went outside my hospital and I did speak at a couple of other organizations, and I was flown to Dell Children's Hospital in Texas to speak for Nurses Week. And then December 2019, about a year after me asking if I could speak at nursing orientation, I got an email from the woman in charge of nursing orientation that said, I got you approved for 30 minutes to speak.
Wow.
And so starting in January 2020, I started speaking once a month for my nursing orientation. And then COVID hit. So we were physically distanced. And so they asked for me to speak twice a month. So starting in about March, April 2020 through the end of middle of 2023, I spoke twice a month to my
Wow.
nursing orientation.
You know, what you've experienced in the story that you told, I feel like a lot of women can relate to that. But what is it about caregivers, nurses, and caregivers that makes it feel especially real and raw to them?
I think when I'm speaking to nurses and caregivers, like you said, it's not just nurses that I've spoken to. I work with physicians and unit clerks and patient care technicians. And I think what it is, I think as women, we feel like we have to take care of everybody that is around us. And whether that is our animals, our partners, children, family members, we kind of have that motherly instinct, even if we're not a mother ourselves, to help people. And so what happens is when we're working, if we're working outside the home, if we're working and we're taking care of people and we're getting paid to take care of those people, that's our job. But what I find is that caregiver hat doesn't come off when we come home.
Mm.
And then we're taking care of our pets, our spouses, our kids, our family, our friends. We're taking care of our neighbors. We're taking care of our parents' neighbors. And what I found, Ivy, in my life, which was one of the things that led me to burnout, was that I never said no
Mm.
because I didn't want anybody to be upset with me.
Right.
And I didn't want someone to think that I wasn't nice. How could a pediatric nurse say no to helping me? And so, what I find when I'm speaking to caregivers is that a lot of the times we don't have boundaries set because nobody teaches you boundaries. We definitely didn't have that in junior high or high school. I had no class on boundaries in nursing school. And what happens is, then I always liken it to when you have a pool in your backyard. The laws are that you have to have a fence around your pool to protect people and animals from getting into your pool and having devastating consequences. Well, there's no gate around our heart or our mind. So there's no boundary, and we just
Mm.
let people in all the time. And so then what happens, there could be devastating consequences to our heart and mind. And then we lead that road for so long, 10, 15, 20 years. We don't know how to get out of it. We don't know
Mm.
how to learn how to say no. And we're falling deeper and deeper into our burnout.
You got to close your own pool gates.
Yes, girl. I love that. Close your own pool gates.
um, but I actually, you can use that if you want to use that in
I
your
was going
next
to say, can I use that?
yeah.
Thank you.
So how do you know when you are starting to burn out? Like, what does that feel like? And is there a way? I know you deal a lot in the prevention of burnout, but how can burnout manifest itself in people?
Oh, that's a great question. I think when I just look back to my own experience, burnout, a lot of times, even though you think that it means I'm so burnt out, I have no energy left, but you're still doing.
Mm.
You're actually trying to do more because you're so uncomfortable or anxious or overwhelmed that you think if I just do more, then maybe it'll fix this. Because what I found, Ivy, was that the deeper I fell into my burnout, the busier I got in my life. I would do more. What I learned later on through my own self care healing journey is that the reason why we get busier and put more on our plates is that we don't want to sit with ourselves
Mm.
and we don't want to sit in the silence. Because what I found in that yoga class that day, and I still find in my yoga class, is that when we're with our own minds, things come up, thoughts, and you start thinking, okay, well, maybe I don't really want to stay in this job,
Mm.
but what would I do? How would I leave? And then you just push that down by saying, no, it's okay, I'll just do more, I'll join a committee at work and maybe that will get me more excited about work. So I think if you notice yourself putting so much on your plate, I think also, like I said to my mom that night about I don't care, I think it's feelings of just I really don't care about work. I don't even feel like going in. And what's really scary is that I'm a pediatric nurse.
Right.
So if I don't care about work or what I'm doing at work when I'm drawing up the tiniest dose of morphine,
Yeah.
to give to someone's baby
It's
after they
dangerous.
had surgery, it's dangerous. It's
Yeah.
actually life-threatening
Yeah.
to my patient. So I think when we have feelings of not caring, that, "Oh, I don't care if something happens." They do say that sick calls, from work when you start taking more and more time off because you just can't imagine going into that setting again because you're feeling so burnt out.
Yeah.
And then also a feeling of loneliness,
Mm.
feeling like I'm probably the only one here who feels like that. So I can't say anything to anybody because they'll think I'm weird.
Katie, I know
So
that one of the things that you suggest to people is journaling because it's a good way to process what you're going through. And I'm going to also say that you created a journal that's
I did.
available on Amazon. And the thing that I really like about this journal is that it you say just do it for a couple of minutes, right? You don't have to spend hours journaling. But this journal gives people a chance to sit and think about what are they thankful for and what are they proud of, and then what do they want. Like, it kind of set your intention. Why does journaling work so well?
So you know what, Ivy? I had tried journaling in the past and I wasn't really into it. I didn't like believe in that it would help me, but I really started journaling every day last year when I went through a very challenging time in my life when I left my bedside nursing job to take on a nursing job, which was away from the bedside at a desk Monday to Friday from 8:30 to 5. And I had been working 3 12-hour shifts for
Mm.
24 years. And I have my journal right here too. I was thinking about it. I started journaling every morning about a month before I left my job to go to the new job. And I was so excited for the new job and the new challenges. And I would write down what I was scared about, what I was excited about. And when I look back, journaling helped me navigate that new job, which I was in from about March to July. And through that job, through those couple months at that job, I started realizing that I wasn't happy away from my patients,
Mm.
that I was missing my schedule of working 3 days a week. In working 5 days a week, I didn't have as much time as I wanted for my husband or my nephews or my parents or my family or my friends. And every day as I journaled, I would say, I'm not really happy here. I don't know how to get back to the bedside. Do I want to go back to the bedside? What are the pros and cons? And sure enough, I left that desk job and went back to my bedside nursing job. And we also moved during that time. So I was able to journal my, feelings about moving. And when you write in there, I want more, and you fill it in. And I said, I want more time freedom. I want my 312s back. And then it happened. And I know a lot of people think if you just throw something out to the universe, it will happen. It's not necessarily that easy, even though I wish it was. But we have to do a little work with that. But unless we sit down and write down what we want or how we're feeling, it just swims up here in our head, which we know is so overstimulated in the world we're living in with social
Yeah.
media.
Yeah.
So if you don't take those 5 minutes, it sometimes takes less than 5 minutes to just write down what you want and need and look at it every morning. That can be the game changer.
Katie, if people want to get in touch with you or find out more about what you're doing, how can they do that?
Thank you. I am on all the social media outlets at Katie Carroll Coaching. My website is katiecarrollcoaching.com. And like Ivy said, my book is available on Amazon.
We end each show with three big little questions. We do them rapid fire. Are you ready?
So I'm ready.
All right. Well, how do you get yourself out of a bad mood?
Girl, it's a good power walk.
I do know that. I do. And what is your go-to karaoke song?
Oh, I love to sing, even though I wasn't blessed with that talent. But I'm going to say Garth Brooks, Friends in Low Places.
Nice. Nice. And what is one of your favorite spots in New Jersey?
Mm. On the Jersey Shore, in a beach chair with people I love, eating some snacks and breathing in that sea air.
I'm coming with you.
That's right, girl.
I'm coming with
We're
you.
getting ready. Spring's coming.
Absolutely. Katie, thank you so much for being here today, for having this conversation, and just for always being such a great light and a place for people to get inspiration and feel a little extra love. So thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you, Ivy and team.
I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
That'll do it for today's Big Little Stories. Be sure to check us out on Instagram at Big Little Story Show. I'm Ivy Sharmetz. I'll talk to you next time.